Hello and welcome into the Pole Position, your first source for news and information in the world of NASCAR and motorsports. Garth McMains alongside Tommy Poole. How are you today, Tommy?
I'm doing well. How about yourself, Garth?
Hanging in there. Always good to be able to talk some racing. And we got a lot to talk about today. The chase for the Sprint Cup starts this weekend, but not just the chase for the Sprint Cup starting this weekend, as I get a little tongue-tied there. We got 3 races to talk about this weekend. Trucks and nationwide in action as well.
Absolutely. That's going to be exciting. The trucks are back after a little bit of absence there. Excited to see them back in action. And then, of course, it's interesting to see the nationwide series. And really, I'm just eager to get that one wrapped up because I really want to see what Chase Elliott can do. He's really impressive.
I agree with that. And let's start off with the trucks this weekend. They had 2 practice sessions today, so we kind of have an idea right now of who is fast this weekend in Chicago. I kind of pinpointed 3 guys I thought were really the most consistently fast between the 3 practices. Jeb Burton, Bubba Wallace, and Austin Dillon were my 3 that seemed like between both practices were really fast. Practice 1, Burton was second, Wallace was 4th, Dillon was 6th. And so Tommy got some really fast trucks here between these 3. Practice 2, Burton was 3rd, Dillon was 4th, and Wallace was 5th. So they were the only ones really consistently up there in the front in both practices. There was a couple others that were kind of consistently in the top 10, but not really right up there at the top.
Points leader, Johnny Sauter, he was, I think, he was in the top 8 in the first practice session, and then in the second he actually topped it. So that was kind of, that pointed out to me. Matt Crafton was back on both practice sessions. In the first practice session, Johnny Sauter was 5th, and then second he topped the charts, and then Crafton was way back in 12th under the first practice session, and then he was 7th in the second. So I think it was 7th. You're checking on that real quick, Garth. But that was kind of interesting to me, and see how that is going to... This is a weekend that Sauter can really pull away, being 14 points ahead in that championship. So that'll be a really big weekend for him, and I'm sure that he's kind of happy. Sigh of relief coming out of that final practice session with him topping the charts.
Well, obviously they found some sort of speed there, but that's the thing. When you're racing your teammate for a championship, and we have this in the nationwide series as well, we'll touch on that later in the segment. When you're racing your teammate for a championship, how much information do you actually share between the two? I mean, I know they're teammates and they say they're supposed to share a lot during the year, but when your teammate's your closest competition for the championship, are they really sharing that much?
Not at all. And a big thing that I can relate to this is, well, in IndyCar, the championship race came down between Will Power and Elio Castroneves, and those 2 are teammates, but they don't share absolute what they have. They may normally in the season, but once it gets to the championship mode, you're in it for yourself. There's, a little team order maybe going on here and there, maybe a little bit that they're bouncing off each other, but, it's kind of like when you play a board game with your family member. You don't want to tell them too much to rat you out because, it is a competition at the end of the day. However, the big word that's going around that garage is, boys, you are teammates. When you get out there on the track, go race hard, but don't take each other out.
Right, and that's the biggest thing. And one thing I wanted to touch on here, we mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, the little feud in the middle of Turner Scott Motorsports. I don't really have too many details on that, so I don't want to speculate too much on that because I'm not really sure what exactly is going on there. But from what I've gathered, Harry Scott and Mr. Turner, I don't remember what his name is, the 2 big figureheads in charge of Turner Scott Motorsports having a little feud. And because of this, the 30 truck of Ron Hornaday was not on track at Canada and will not be on track this weekend in Chicago. But Rheem, who was the main sponsor for that truck, had a lot of, employees and suppliers and stuff. They had a big tent set up and everything at Chicago, and they didn't want to not have a truck on track for this. So what they've done is they've teamed with GTS Motorsports and put the number 20 truck on track with Austin Dillon in there with Rheem sponsorship. So an interesting little development here, and I can understand this from Rheem's point of view because really they had nothing to do with this, and when you've already got all these employees and suppliers and everything promised that they can come to this race, you want to have a Rheem truck on track, and putting Austin Dillon in that truck gives you a chance to win the race too.
No, I totally understand from Rheem's perspective. The interesting thing, though, is Ron Hornaday Jr. is fourth in points.
He was before Canada.
When they pulled him out, he was fourth in points, and he wasn't that far off.
Mm-hmm.
So it was definitely, he was still in that championship hunt, and that's really what you've got to watch. And now, since they pulled him out in Canada, he's slipped down to sixth, 64 points off, which still is not a unreasonable amount of points to win back. So whatever it is, it's got to be pretty big because if it's for a race or two, I understand that. But when you're going for a championship, that's what your season's all about. That's
right.
Your bread and butter is a championship. So to pull a driver out to make a point and pull yourself out of championship contention, it's got to be something big.
And I don't understand why Ron Hornaday, if they're going to pull out a truck, like you said, to make a point like this. I mean, not to bash on Ben Kennedy and Taylor Malsum, the other two trucks, but especially Taylor Malsum. Taylor Malsum hasn't performed that greatly this year in that 32 truck. He's not in the top 10 in points. Ben Kennedy's sitting ninth right now in points. But Ron Hornaday's your guy going for a championship. I don't understand why that's the one you pull out if you're going to pull somebody out.
That's my exact point as well. Is all you work for all season long is to get in that championship, and as a team you win championships. So to pull yourself out of championship contention, there's got to be a huge problem on the inside.
Definitely. One last thing, I wanted to point a spotlight on someone here before we move to the Nationwide Series, that being Herman Quiroga. Fast in both practice sessions, 9th in the first practice, and I believe 7th in the second practice, as I get the tab for the second practice pulled up here on my slow computer. 6th in the second practice, so he's been very quick this weekend, came very close to getting his first career win there for Red Horse Racing in Canada 2 weeks ago. Came right down to a photo finish with Ryan Blaney. I thought he had it, and then Ryan Blaney made a great crossover move and got him coming out of the last corner. Herman seems to have turned the corner here lately. He's had some pretty good trucks from Red Horse. Red Horse has kind of been off their game for a little bit, but they seem to be rebounding right now. And Herman is someone I would not be surprised to see win a race before the end of the season. I wouldn't be surprised to see it right now. I think he's got a lot of confidence riding from Canada.
And he needs to win that race this season. He's there in championship contention, but we talked in the Cup preview a couple weeks back in Richmond with Matt Kenseth. Consistency will get you far through the regular season. That'll get you locked in the chase. That'll put you in contention. But once you get into chase time, which is now for the trucks, you need a win in order to even think about winning the championship.
Except that the trucks don't really have a chase.
Well, they don't have a specific chase, but this is go time for them. You're rounding the last turn of the season with a couple races left. You've really even since they don't have a specific time, there is a point in the schedule that you go, okay, if we're not at this point by this race, then we may be out. And then if we are there, then it's go time. And that's what I meant by chase time.
Nationwide series this weekend in action as well. On Saturday, Chase Elliott won there back in July, I believe it was. Kyle Busch, the defending winner of this race. Elliott with a 19-point lead now over teammate Regan Smith in the standings. What are his odds of sweeping here this weekend and getting that fourth win of the year?
I think pretty good. Besides Richmond, he ended up catching up to Busch towards the end of the race and just didn't have anything for Kyle and settled for second. If he does, it is very possible for him to beat Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch is human; he is unbeatable. However, if there is only a few in the Nationwide Series, especially in the points chase, that are going to have a shot at Kyle, and Chase is one of them. So I really think that he can, but if he can't get the win, I don't think he should fret too much, because finishing in the top three like he did in Richmond is still going to pad his cushion a little bit, especially over Regan Smith, who is a talented driver, and he spent some time in the Cup Series as well. So, whenever you beat Regan Smith, one, your teammate, you're in the same equipment, and two, a guy who's been in the Cup Series a little bit, that'll do a bunch for your confidence level and also prove that you really are a contender, and it's not just you have better equipment than everybody else in the series.
It's funny. I was listening to Sirius XM earlier today, and Dave Moody was interviewing Chase Elliott earlier, and he was going through asking him all these questions. And Dave made the point right at the end of the interview to go, it's amazing that most guys at this point in the season, when they're leading the points right now, and they've got, I wouldn't call Chase's lead of 19 points a sizable lead, but it's getting to the point where it's comfortable. And most guys at this point, as they start winding down the races of the season, they got 8 races left, go into conservation mode. Keep that lead conserved, do what you can to pad the points, all that kind of thing. Chase is not in that mindset right now. He's got the same mindset right now he's had the entire season. We go out, we try to win the race, and let the chips fall where they may. And I wanted to get your input on that, because that's an interesting thought process to have. Does he have that because he's still a rookie and he doesn't 100% understand the championship scenario he's in, or is that just the kind of driver Chase is?
I 100% agree with this, and I think what it's based on is he came in, and before the season started, everybody said, yeah, he's going to be good. But if I came to you before the season started and said, hey, Chase Elliott's going to be a contender and have the points lead going into the last couple races, and maybe playing conservation mode, you think I'd be crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the point, is he's went all season by just going out there, going as fast as he can, hitting his marks, and trying to get to victory lane. And if it's not broke, don't fix it. And, that's been working for him. He's young. He doesn't have the nerves. He doesn't have the expectations to win this championship. It's all kind of, he kept winning and looked at the point spread and go, you know what, I got a shot at this thing. So now you can't start freaking yourself out. You've got in here by winning. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Yep. Final thoughts here as we wrap up this segment. Final thoughts on Truck and Chase, or on Nationwide for this weekend.
Trucks will be interesting with Johnny Sauter and Matt Crafton. Also, their teammate Jeb Burton. He did well in practice, both practice sessions. So the Tour team racing is doing really well. Their trucks are running at prime condition. So watch them for the trucks, and then the Nationwide, I think it's going to be a shootout again between Kyle Busch and Chase Elliott. I believe Chase Elliott's got a little retaliation for Kyle Busch. He felt like Kyle got the best of him in Richmond, and be looking for Chase Elliott to go out there and be fired up.
All right, we'll step aside. When we come back, we will talk the Sprint Cup Series for this weekend. And welcome back to the Pole Position, your first source for news and information in the world of NASCAR and motorsports. Garth McMains once again here alongside Tommy Poole. And Tommy, time to talk the Sprint Cup Series. Starting the chase for the Sprint Cup this weekend. I'm hyped. How about you?
Me too. I am as well.
This is the best time of the year, I think. I mean, they say Christmas is the best time of the year, but I don't know that you can beat Chase for the Cup time.
No, you can't, and especially with this new format that they've got. It's fantastic, and as long as with everything brand new, there will be some bugs, I think, but bugs to the fans are entertainment. You know what I mean? Every little kink in the results or whatnot, that's going to be excitement for us fans, and I think that's really going to help us. I cannot see this being in a bad light whatsoever. I just can't see that happening.
Well, a little bit of news surfacing this week. One, I think we saw coming. Kevin Harvick's team, we know about their problems on pit road that they've had all season. It was rumored for the past couple weeks that this might happen when the chase starts, or I don't know if it was rumored that it might happen, but I know I heard people saying that it probably should happen, and it was finally confirmed that it has happened. Starting this week, the pit crews for Kevin Harvick and Tony Stewart have been swapped. So Kevin now has Tony's original pit crew, which, for their sake, hopefully will fix their problems.
Correct, and I mean, I don't see how it can get much worse.
Yeah.
You know, it's been pitiful, and there's no roundabout way to say that. Just when you're going in and competing for a championship, you've got to be on top of your game, and you've got to make sure you know what you're doing to the car and which way you're going with the car. And if it's not going in the right way, don't continue down that path because you're just going to make it worse. And that's what they did in Richmond.
Yep.
And the thing is it's not that, you know, Kevin Harvick is still competitive with that team. You know, he finished sixth with a malfunctioning car because the crew kept going in the wrong way.
Right.
You know, and how much of that is Kevin Harvick? Because as a driver, you know, you're giving feedback to your crew chief who then makes the changes and where they want to go with the car. So then is Kevin telling them the wrong things and giving them the wrong ideas to what change? Or is it just they're going in the wrong way with the car? And, you know, but still he is competitive with this, with a bad pit crew and, you know, fumbling lug nuts, bad changes, things like that. So if Stewart's team can come in, and yes, they're going to, I don't expect them to be 100% right off the bat. You know, they're still going to be a little bit getting used to. But, you know, that's a good thing about the chase here is Kevin Harvick is pretty well. He will be a front runner. That would be an upset if he does not make it past the first three races here. So I really think that, you know, he has three races to kind of feel about. And, you know, it would be different if he was going in and running, you know, 20th or 30th, you know, but even with a bad car, he can still finish, you know, top 10, which is just amazing.
Right. And you had something on Parker Kligerman, who we haven't seen most of the year. I actually hadn't heard this, so why don't you explain to everyone what this is all about?
Parker Kligerman is going to be testing in an Indy Lights car this weekend. He will be testing with Sam Schmidt Motorsports, which Sam Schmidt basically owns that series. There's a brand new car going in effect this year for the 2015 series. The car count last year had been going away, unfortunately. This year there was only about 9 or 10 cars. The new car is supposed to be more compatible with the Indy car. It is also supposed to be compatible with the GP2 cars, which is an overseas series specializing in Formula One. So they're trying to get the car count up by that. So he will be testing this weekend for sure in the Indy Lights series. And then I did not know. I knew a little bit about it, but once I read this article on IndyCar.com, it kind of refreshed my memory. But he was an outstanding open wheel driver before he came to the NASCAR ranks. So he kind of was like Kyle Larson.
Mm-hmm.
He competed in the Skip Barber event, and he went 3 for 3 in that series, which is pretty tremendous. So he's no stranger to open wheel, and I really do think he is like a Kyle Larson. Big loss for NASCAR, I think. But you look at what he's done this season, and on paper he looks like just a mediocre driver, but he is so much more.
Well, he hasn't been around for about 15 races
Well,
now.
correct, but in the races that he ran, he was pretty good. On paper, like I said, it's mediocre.
Mm-hmm.
But if you watched him, he has talent.
Right.
And of course, with this season, nobody's really showed interest in him, and he's young and he still is not going to give up on his dreams. So therefore, he's trying to move on to the next best thing.
Which it's sad that nobody really paid too much attention to him, because I watched him come up through the trucks and Nationwide, and he had showed so much talent in those two series, especially in the truck series. Almost won a championship in the truck series with Red Horse before moving up to the Nationwide with Kyle Busch Motorsports, and then eventually this season moving up to the Cup Series with Swan Racing, who is now not even around, which is why he's not in the Cup Series anymore. Swan, for those of you that don't remember, the owner lost his funding, 10, 12 races into the season, something like that, and ended up having to sell the team. The 30 car, which Parker drove, ceased to exist. The 26 car, which was the second car for the team, driven by Cole Witt, was absorbed into the BK Racing stable and became teammates with Ryan Truex and Alex Bowman. So it was really unfortunate what happened to Parker, and I wished he could have found somewhere else in NASCAR. But big addition, I think, for IndyCars if he's able to secure a ride over there.
And it's shocking, too, because it's not just the fans seeing something in Parker Kligerman or the people who followed Parker Kligerman. The big teams in NASCAR have seen something in him. Stewart Haas Racing used him to set up the 41 car in Charlotte when Kurt Busch was in Indy with his Indy car. Penske uses him in testing, getting those cars ready and testing the Penske cars. And, I don't know if you live under a rock, but Penske is huge in motorsports, and he doesn't have just Joe Blow jumping his car.
Right.
If you're running for Penske or you're affiliated with Penske in any way, you're on top of your game. And for him to do that but still be rideless, it just kind of it's got me scratching my head.
Right. One last piece of news before we get into the actual race this weekend. The Ontario County Sheriff's Department has said that they have completed their investigation into the death of Kevin Ward Jr. Did not release any specifics, but they said they would release a statement late next week on their findings. So we have no more information than that right now, but as soon as that statement is released, we will have more for you on that.
They also said in that release that they will release their findings late next week, as well as the action they will be taking. And that is all the information we have. So that last little quote is kind of confusing for us as our scratching our heads, but that is all the information we have right now.
Right. Now, back to the racing for this weekend. Sprint Cup Series in Chicagoland, the myafibstory.com 400. Name's kind of a mouthful, but always a good race here at Chicagoland. One of the better races all season, I think, Tommy.
It really is. The mile and a halves are fun. Really good track, really fast track, and first race of the chase. Always exciting in itself. So I'm really excited for it as well.
First race of the chase, as you said, points reset this weekend. Brad Keselowski comes in as the top seed. Tommy, who do you think has the best chance of securing that first win of the chase and being that first person to clinch a spot in the contender round?
I think it's either your first or second seed. Brad Keselowski is on fire. they're really firing on all cylinders. Jeff Gordon is having the season of his career. So both drivers are sitting in the catbird seat for me.
I would agree with that. I'm going to stick with who I put on my chase grid bracket on Sunday, though. I'm still sticking with him to win this race. Kevin Harvick, his pit crew swap this week might be a little bit of a hindrance, but I think by the time the end of the race rolls around, his new crew is going to get used to him. They're going to be back to normal, and as long as he doesn't have the pit road hiccups that has plagued him the entire season, I think he could be a real contender here. He's been really good on tracks like this. Really, he's been good everywhere this season. That's the thing. He's had literally probably the fastest car 9 times out of 10 this season, and just little things like that, pit road, mechanical problems, whatever, has kept him from winning probably 15 races that he could have won.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you a dark horse of mine this weekend, Eric Armarillo.
Really?
Yeah, and I say this because we left this out of the Nationwide, but he is actually entered to race in the Nationwide race this weekend as well. And the only reason I can think of that is to get him more experience and not only on this track, but just get him more seat time. And that's going to prepare him for the race. And it'll be interesting if they start doing that for the rest of the Nationwide races this season in the chase to kind of prepare him for that. And it'd be interesting to see if that does help him this weekend.
Well, see, I would agree with that, and here's my reasoning for that is he comes into this race with 2 straight top 10s. He has a little bit of momentum on his side that normally I don't think he would have. The team's been quietly really good for him, and I think that's going to help him. That momentum really is going to help him start this chase off well. And he might be a dark horse to actually advance to the contender round. I would not be surprised right now with the way they've been running to see him advance, especially if, like you said, he ends up in that 98 car in the Nationwide Series for the rest of the season.
And that's the beauty of this whole thing is really just, the state of unknown and the state of this, people thinking that still have a shot for it, that we think still have a shot for it, but that we may not have thought without this format. So that's really interesting.
Well, that'll just about do it for us, Tommy. Quickly, your final thoughts on the Cup race.
It'll be interesting. First one of the year. Everybody's going to be going for it.
Definitely. Well, we'll skip it over to Ryan Gearman now for the white flag lap, and then we'll come back to wrap things up. This is the pole position.
The investigation into the death of Kevin Moore Jr. has been completed. The Ontario County, New York office of the sheriff announced on Thursday afternoon in a statement. The Ontario County Office of Sheriff has completed its investigation into the death of Kevin Moore Jr., which occurred August 9, 2014, in Motorsports Park in New York. The entire thorough investigation, including a forensic enhancement recently received from the New York State Police Laboratory in Albany, has been submitted to the Office of the Ontario County District for review. The District Attorney's Office, which has been meeting throughout the investigation process with members of the Sheriff's Office, will make a statement late next week advising what action will be taken regarding the investigation. Also today is September 11th, and the NASCAR community remembers everyone affected by the tragic events on September 11, 2001. Drivers and teams shared their support for 9/11 victims and their families, as well as those who continue to serve and protect our nation. Kurt Busch tweeted, "My thoughts and prayers go out to all who lost their lives on 9/11 and those who fought for our country. Hashtag never forget. Hashtag outlaw nation." Ricky Stenhouse Jr. tweets, 9/11/01. Always remember the day and the people who lost their lives and the people who gave it all to help save lives that day. And Elliot Sadler tweets, "May we remember all who lost their lives on 9/11 and who have lost their lives since fighting to keep us safe. Hashtag God bless our troops." I'm Ryan Gearman. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. That'll just about do it for us this week on the pole position. Thank you to Tommy and Ryan Gearman tonight for being on the show. Look forward to the chase this weekend. Be sure to drop a like, subscribe to us, and email us with your questions at polepositionshow@gmail.com.